You're listening to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Welcome back to The South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast by Ohio State fans for Ohio State fans from the West Coast. I'm your host, Zach Moore. Today is Thursday, November 11th, and I'm very happy to be joined once again by fellow South Stands contributor Paige Van Horn from Denver. PVH, how's that first Heineken going down, my friend?
Oh, buddy, it's just delicious. It's Thursday. It's Heineken time. Got a few more Buckeye games. I mean, life is good.
Life is good. We are also joined by contributor Chad Plummer from Cleveland. CP, what's the word from the 216?
Yeah. What's up, boys? It's good to be back on. The 216 is it's all good.
I love it. It's coming in nice and crisp and clean and clear on his brand new Yeti microphone. Congratulations on that purchase.
Shout out to my buddy Matt Sloan. Yeti, what's up?
All right, nice. All right, Sloaner. So was that a gift from Sloaner?
When I got back from Bloomington, Z, there was a Yeti in my mailroom from the Sloaner throttle.
The Sloaner.
Huge thanks to Sloaner. Hopefully we can wrangle him sometime to be a guest on the pod. Yes. But he is here. He is here in spirit.
Always.
All right. Well, of course, we're here today to preview number 4 Ohio State's matchup with number 19 Purdue in the Horseshoe this coming Saturday. But before we dive into that, gents, we didn't really have a chance as a group to talk about Ohio State's lackluster 26-17 win over Nebraska last Saturday. Now, we don't have to dive too much into that, and our listeners kind of already know where I stand on that result. But, Paige, I want to start with you. Have you reset your expectations for the Buckeyes after that result, and maybe after what we saw against Penn State?
But before we do that, are we going to classify this as Juan's asking, or have we reset expectations every single time? Because I think this is like the concerno meter. That seems like it's a staple now in the South Stands. So
the expectation reset. Yeah, we'll have to come up with a gimmick for that and a graphic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's something for Sloaner. Like, I don't know, we can reference
you did have a graphic for that
for the concernometer for sure. Yeah, now we need to come up with another one for the expectation reset lever. Maybe it's just a lever you pull.
if it would have been last Saturday afternoon, it would have been like all down to 0.
Yeah, totally. That lever would have needed some WD-40 after that performance. So PBH, where do you stand on that? Have you pulled the expectation reset lever on this one on the Buckeyes this year?
I think I did against Penn State. I think Nebraska did nothing to change that. Although we'll get into it. I'm actually pretty bullish about this weekend.
All right.
I think you were right and I was wrong. There's not much to worry about in the game after that. And then maybe a little in the game after that. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but yeah, I think, and when I reset expectations, I was clearly thinking this is the second best team in the country. I don't think based on those two performances, you can say that with a straight face at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that, though. Nobody else, after Georgia, of course, has really stepped up to claim the next best team, right? I mean, Bama really struggled and Cincinnati looked terrible. And of course, Michigan State lost. So I guess there is some solace in that. And I said that on the pod on Sunday, that the rest of the top 6 really struggled, after Georgia. CP, how about you? Have you readjusted your expectations for this team after what happened last week against Nebraska?
I've said this a couple times throughout the last few weeks, how wacky this college football season has been.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically at the end of the day, you know what? Nebraska is a solid football team. And you know what? I'll sit down and argue with anybody about the fact that they're not. I mean, they've made look how their losses against top 10 teams.
Yeah. Three of them previous to Ohio State. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a combined score of less than 25 points, I think.
Yeah, might even be less than that. Yeah.
I was just, yeah, exactly. I think it's probably more like 12 or 15. But anyway, you know what? I was trying to be opposite, of I always am, my positivity and
mm-hmm.
just throwing out on the text thread you see guys last week. I was a little little tough on CJ Stroud.
You were ready to bench him for the mullet, I think.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the mullet's going to be here next year. I mean, he's going to get a battle out in spring,
right?
But I'd like to see, like what was going through my head was like, let's see what number 5 Kyle McCord's got, and took a little criticism from a few the guys on the thread.
That ship has sailed.
Hey, dude,
I think
chill, bro. But what I saw, like, dude, he's like, every time he spins, he like, when he's getting pressured, he spins the wrong way. And yes, I know he's young, this and that, and like, I mean, the interception, that's going to cost us in a big game. So
he's also a freshman, man. It's also
I get learning. It. I get it, but you know what? Hey, so is McCord. Let's see what he's got.
We've done that. We've seen it. There's nothing much more there to see than CJ Stroud, especially on the 9th game of the season. You're not making that change.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's too late to make a change. Certainly Stroud could have played a little better. He made some mistakes. It was the first time I came out of a game since the Oregon game where I felt like his decision-making was a little bit questionable. Obviously, he made some poor decisions that were finally, quite frankly, showed his youth. As Paige, as you've referenced, he's a redshirt freshman. He's a first-year starter. For me, the bigger concern was the inability to run the football or the lack of a commitment to the running game, which I just didn't understand. I said this on Sunday's pod. Ohio State came out and ran through the ball on 13 of its first 16 plays of the game. And never really, so right out of the gates, Ryan Day seemed bound and determined to really just kind of force the issue throwing the football. And I didn't understand why he got away from TreVeyon Henderson, why he didn't seem patient with the running game, because his patience with the running game against Penn State paid off, right? There was not early success, for the first 2+ quarters. Henderson really struggled. He was stonewalled by Penn State, but it did pay dividends to keep at least trying to run the ball later in the game because he sprung a couple of big runs that led to 10 Ohio State points late in that game.
Guys, let's. I just want to clear the air here. Like, I'm not Debbie Downer on CJ Stroud, but I question some of the decision making, and that's just going to cost us in a big game.
Yeah,
that's all I was kind of getting at. So I'm like, I'm not going to turn the chapter on CJ. I mean, the kid's got a beautiful arm, man. Just to I know he's a freshman, just frustrating sometimes. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I feel like Day is asking too much of CJ Stroud, or certainly he did last Saturday. There has to be more balance in the play calling. They have to maybe be a little bit more creative. The offensive line has to be better. I think you guys would agree with that. Correct me if I'm wrong if you don't, but they're not balanced right now. And that's, I don't understand it because it's certainly not for lack of talent, and it's not for lack of proven talent. So I personally have, adjusted my expectations a little bit, looking at the last 2 performances against Penn State and Nebraska, and how the offense just seems kind of stuck in neutral for, again, reasons I can't understand. I thought Ari Wasserman of The Athletic had a really great analogy earlier this week when he said, watching the Ohio State offense has been like watching a Ferrari drive through a school zone. Which I think is a really good analogy, right? Because you can see the talent there, you can see the playmaking there, and they have had flashes, they have had big plays in each of these last 2 games. It's just the red zone inefficiencies is just curious, and the inability to run the ball at times is curious. And a couple of weeks ago we were talking about an Ohio State Georgia title game as if it were a foregone conclusion, but now that kind of talk seems very premature, considering how the Buckeyes played the last 2 weeks and what they now have in front of them with 3 straight games against legit top 25 opponents. Now, Paige, you referenced this earlier. I questioned just how good Michigan State and Michigan actually are, but I think they're legit top 25 opponents. And I think Purdue might actually be the best team left on their regular season schedule. And of course, if they make the Big Ten title game, that's going to be a 4th legit top 25 opponent. So I'm in more of a wait and see mode now, whereas a couple of weeks ago, I was like, Ohio State, Georgia title game, foregone conclusion.
Right.
So I think that's how I've adjusted my expectations. Paige, you got any other thoughts you want to share about where you are with this team right now?
Yeah, I just think it all, part of it is, the most perplexing is what's going on with the offensive line.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just juggling guys around, and, certain guys are playing guard instead of tackle. They're rotating dudes in, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a good thing, but you got to pick a 5 and you got to just let them get lathered up and roll with your best 5.
I agree.
Whoever that might be. I think if there's anything that's of concern to me, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had Day, his play calling sometimes is just head scratching. I mean, like the obvious one, right? When it was first and goal or first and 35 with 2 minutes left to go. But why are you throwing a wide receiver screen to Rossi, your fullback,
with no lead blockers or anything, right?
Why is that even on your sheet?
Yeah.
Can we just eliminate that off the sheet? And maybe you have too much stuff on there that we need to make this a little bit simpler.
Yeah.
I think
get an eraser and put some shit off that little plastic thing.
That was
you hold
really one
face,
of the funniest things. I just remember just trying to understand why that would. It doesn't work when you try it with Garrett Wilson. Why is it going to work with Rossi? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think the good news is I think everything is fixable, right? I mean, the offensive line, it's all fixable. If we would have, when we were talking about the defense earlier in the year, you're like, that was potentially not fixable. This is all very fixable. They just need to get back to some more balance. Mm-hmm. I get it, right? If a team's trying to take something away from you, then you're going to lean, obviously do the opposite, but you still have to kind of do both decently well if you want to, run the table. So I had a bad feeling about the Nebraska game. You did. I just felt like they were better than people were giving them credit for, and they had horrific turnovers that killed them. Mm-hmm. It quite wasn't the turnovers that killed them. There's some special teams play killed them in that game. But I mean, I just felt like coming off of Penn State, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, when we got waxed by Purdue, that was coming off the Penn State victory where JT Barrett, put on the Superman cape. And
that was Iowa, actually. That was Iowa.
Was that Iowa?
Yeah.
Was that the Iowa game?
Yeah. It was the year after was Purdue. And that was where we had all kinds of issues, running the ball and defensive issues. And we were, narrowly escaping, disaster, and then finally caught up to us against Purdue.
I think I had just a bad 11 o'clock in Lincoln, who knows, it could be 90 degrees, windy, blah, blah, blah. It had upset written all over it to me. So 9 points wasn't great. Take the win, get out of there. Yeah. And then we move on. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right.
You had bad feelings, Z, but I think if you go back to the tape, I did. The concern meter was high, but the score prediction was
that was the ultimate hedge, right? Yeah, those are all good points. And actually looking back on it now, Paige, you're right. It made sense that you would have that bad feeling because you have to wonder too how seriously Ohio State the players might have taken it. Of course, they're going to say all the right things and everything in the pregame and the interviews leading up to the game. But this is a program you've dominated year in and year out. It's been a name your score game pretty much every year. And as you say, Nebraska has been very competitive this year. Desperate, Scott Frost, desperate for a win, though he did get an extra year. Trev Alberts signed him an extra year. He got the Jim Harbaugh treatment with his contract, right? With a lower buyout, and he had to fire half his staff, and kind of what Harbaugh was asked to do last offseason.
Who else are they going to get, man? The guy bleeds he bleeds Nebraska.
Yeah,
he's a corn chucker, and you look at their games. I mean, they've been
very competitive. Games.
They just get some real bad breaks, man.
Yeah. Well, also they create their own bad breaks too with terrible special teams play, and they're loose with the football and untimely penalties and stuff, and that comes back to coaching. But this isn't a Nebraska Cornhusker podcast, so I don't really want to talk too much about Scott Frost's contract. I probably should have brought it up. So all right, sounds like Paige, at least you and I have adjusted our expectations a little bit. I'm in more of a wait and see mode, but I think we all feel like, look, I mean, the problems on offense are correctable because the talent is there. And it's proven talent, right? These are kids that have won a lot of big games at Ohio State, have been productive in a lot of throughout their career, and put up big numbers in big games. And there's no reason why they can't do it again this season.
So we were questioning our play calling prior to the Clemson game, And
Oh, that's right.
look what happened there. And we lit them up like a Christmas tree. So, I'm not really worried about that.
So let's have a look at this Saturday's clash with number 19 Purdue in the Horseshoe. This game is a 3:30 p.m. Eastern kick on ABC. The line is Ohio State minus 21. So it opened at 19 and now it's Ohio State minus 21. That's a huge line. The over-under is 62.5. Purdue comes into this game at 6-3, but as you guys know, with 2 decisive wins over top 3 opponents, they manhandled number 2 Iowa, 24-7 in Iowa City back on October 16th. And just last Saturday in West Lafayette, they ran number 3 Michigan State off the field, 40-29. Neither of those games is really in doubt. And with those 2 victories, Purdue as a program now has 17 wins all time over top 5 opponents as an unranked team, which I think is insane. That's crazy. That leads all of college football.
That is crazy.
So hey, it's a good thing for us that Purdue's ranked in this game, I guess, right? Now, Purdue, as we know, has 2 very dangerous players. We've been hearing their names all season long, one on each side of the ball, starting with receiver David Bell, who leads the Big Ten in receiving yards with 1,003. He's the first receiver in the Big Ten to go over 1,000 yards. He's averaging 125 yards receiving per game. That also leads the Big Ten. And he's second in the conference in receptions with 64. That's right behind Jahan Dotson. And the other player to watch out for is defensive end George Karlaftis. He's Purdue's highest rated defender, according to PFF, with a grade of 87.1. Now, Karlaftis has, listen to this, 43 total pressures, according to PFF, 43. That's almost as many pressures as Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison have combined. They have 50 combined.
That's a crazy stat.
It's crazy. So, and if you look at the mock drafts right now, and I know they're not the be all end all mock drafts, but before we jumped on, I did a quick Google search for 2022 mock drafts, and the 3 that came up, CBS Sports has Karlaftis going number 1 in their mock draft. Pro Football Focus has him going number 8. NBC Sports has him going 10th, number 10 in the 2022 draft. Now, he might not be Joey or Nick Bosa caliber, but he's very close. He's very disruptive, and he's the anchor of a pretty good Purdue defense that ranks 26th nationally in total defense and 14th against the pass. Now, that's a key stat right there. 14th against the pass. We know Ohio State likes to chuck it around, maybe a little too much. Purdue's got a pretty good pass defense. And the other player to watch out for is quarterback Aiden O'Connell. He's completing a staggering, listen to this, 71.6% of his passes. 71.6. He's thrown 12 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. So, he is a little prone to throwing interceptions. But man, that dude was dropping some dimes against Michigan State. He had a throw in the corner of the end zone last Saturday that very few quarterbacks can make. And I tell you what, man, Ohio State, they've been much improved defensively, but still pretty vulnerable against the pass. They come into this game 95th nationally in passing yards allowed at 247 yards per game. I like Cam Brown and Denzel Burke. They're going to get tested big time in this game. I don't know about you guys. The player that really worries Ransom is one player that really worries me, and the other one is Bryson Shaw on the back end of that defense, right? Those dudes have got to be better than they were last week because Purdue can't run the ball. They're not even going to try. They're terrible. Listen to this, 128th out of 130 teams in the FBS in rushing offense. They average 70 yards a game. So look, I mean, O'Connell's going to chuck it. He's going to throw it over 50 times in this game. That's a guarantee. He threw it 54 times against Sparty. So that's the skinny on this Purdue team. I want to turn it over to you guys for Concernometer scores. Paige, give me your Concernometer score for this game. 2. Explain.
I think our Concernometer games were Penn State and Nebraska. This game, they're not sneaking up on us. They do one thing well, right?
Right.
The one thing I did look up, and you just said it, they cannot run the ball. It's atrocious. So if we can't shut down one guy when they're not even going to try to run the ball, then we can go back to the reset expectations. Like, this team has no business even making the playoff.
Yeah, I probably won't watch it again the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, like Latham Ransom, he got burnt by Nebraska's best wide receiver. Why isn't our best DB covering their best wide receiver? So wherever this guy goes on the field, Cam Brown or Burke need to be on him, or even Banks, right? I mean,
yeah.
I would prefer Bird, just be Burke, right? Take the one thing away that they do and then make the other guys beat us. They're not going to run the ball. So I think they're completely one-dimensional. I think Ohio State got smacked in the face. I think they're going to figure some things out. I think they're going to win this game. I'm not sure if they'll cover, but I don't think it's going to be a nail biter into the fourth quarter. I'm a 2.
All right. Before I turn it over to you, Chad, just to your point about being one-dimensional and kind of a one-man show on offense, David Bell has 64 receptions for Purdue. The receiver, the next receiver behind him, Milton Wright, 36 receptions. And Payne Durham, he also has 36. So, I mean, Bell is, there is a huge gap between Bell and their next receiver, statistically speaking. I mean, they really look for him. He is the sun, moon, and stars of that offense for them. Okay, Chad, I want to kick it over to you. Concernometer score, what you got?
I mean, what's the lowest that we have on there? Like, was it 0.375? I'll just like
0.
I'll just say, all right. I'm gonna do a 0, Z.
Wow. Okay, you're really not that concerned at all.
No, not at all. And you know what?
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you. Like, looking back on play calling, so frustrating, and sometimes we give up the big plays. But you know, I'm kind of like rolling on with Vegas with us, like that line. It's just
21.
It's crazy. I think everybody in the country is going to be betting on Purdue for sure. And that's why I think
the line went up.
I'll be in Vegas this weekend, and I'm going to lay it all on the Buckeyes.
Well, the line went up from 19, open at 19.
It's like 20.5 now, right?
21 is what I'm looking at on ESPN.
Whoa.
Yeah.
See, I mean, that's crazy. Well, so there are people betting on the Buckeyes.
Yeah. So it would appear, yeah. For me, I got it at a 7, and, I'm the worry ward of the three of us. But I am concerned about this matchup. They always say styles make fights. And what Purdue does well, we're vulnerable, and that's in the pass game, or defending the pass. And I worry a little bit about the back end of that defense, especially what happened last week against Nebraska. So I'm going to set it at a 7. I also worry a little bit about red zone struggles, and Nebraska was able to get a little pressure on C.J. Stroud last week. He was sacked twice.
Yeah.
He was pressured quite a lot. This George Karlaftis, man, this is a guy that's very disruptive. So setting the concernometer at a 7, and I'm hoping, of course, I'm wrong. I'd be very happy to be wrong with my
I think I
readout.
said a couple weeks ago, I was concerned about the red zone offense, and you guys made me, especially Uzi, made me feel a little bit comfortable that I didn't have to be worrying about it so much.
Yeah.
But obviously after last week, Jesus.
Yeah. I wasn't ready to call it a concern at the time, but clearly it's become a concern. All right. So we got
to that point, like it's like Chase Young. So if put 2 guys on the guy, right?
Yeah.
Every single play, if it's Ruckert or Rossi, I don't know. Take him out of the equation.
Yeah.
Like you can now, I keep hearing about these 2 players. Okay. We have 12 players. Right. Shit, we might even have 20 players. So you can't outcoach their best player on offense. And by the way, I think I'm still taking Wilson and Olave over Bell every day of the week, right? And maybe
Jackson Smith and Jigba, man, the way he's playing.
Right?
I'll take number 11.
So do it, remember like Chase Young, he was just wreaking havoc in the beginning of his junior year. And then teams got smart. It's like, look, we're going to double, maybe even triple team the guy, make somebody else on the defensive line beat you. That guy's legit. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
But as good as their defense may or may not be, make someone else beat you. So coach it up so that guy doesn't beat you.
Well, and they have the personnel on the offensive line to stop. I'm sorry. I think our tackles should be able to hold up one-on-one with Karlaftis. We've got the talent along the offensive line. They just need to play better. I don't know what's going on, but maybe having maybe having a ballyhooed player like Karlaftis come into the shoe and challenge them. They'll rise to the challenge and play like they're capable.
I've always been the biggest Ryan Day cheerleader, and I still think he's an excellent coach, and I feel like he doesn't show his hand with everything, like I've said for the past couple of years. But I'm still a little bit puzzled by, we do have the best offensive line in the country, and I just, it's puzzling to me, what is going on sometimes. Jesus, it's very confusing and it's very disturbing to me at times. But I feel like it's like he's not showing all of his hand, I guess. Like
maybe that's the case. I mean, against Northwestern in the Big Ten title game, right? It was one of I called it one of his worst called games of his career, and then they just lit Clemson on fire. You already made reference to the CP.
Yeah, so I think, but when does it come a point like, all right, I don't want to show like Michigan my hand, like because I feel like he feels like they got a little bit better ball club. They're going to be in Ann Arbor. I don't want to get too far off tilt here, but when does it come a point where like, hey man, we need to call some different plays?
I think that's one thing that we need to see. He's got to be better. He's got to be more balanced and a little bit more creative. I think that's totally on it. It wasn't all player execution. I thought Day made some questionable calls. Paige, you made reference to it. The screen out in space to your slow fullback, like what's he, with no lead blockers. What was that? And then, I went berserk when he called the pass play, from the Nebraska 34 with 1:45 to play, 1st and 10. What are you doing? That was reminiscent of that Penn State play, that pass call against Penn State 2 years ago where Justin Fields got sacked. They were trying to salt away the clock. Fields got sacked and fumbled. He fell on it, but he hurt his knee, and that injury plagued him the rest of the season and ended up kind of being our undoing because, he lost his mobility, which we really could have used in the Clemson game. But so I agree with you. Day's got to be better.
You got another guy up in the box who we're paying $2 million.
Right. Like what is he seeing up there? Like, I mean, come on. Like it's as simple as like we're talking through these microphones. Hey, Ryan, wait, there's a guy wide open back there and there's big holes over to the left. Come on.
Yeah. Look, stick with the running game. Don't abandon it right out of the gates. If you don't have early success, you have to keep Purdue honest. And look, one way to combat a defensive end like Karlaftis is to keep him honest by running the football. You can't let him pin his ears back and come after your quarterback. If Ohio State, acquiesces and tries to throw 40, 50 times a game, which was what Purdue would love.
What about like the defensive penalties, man? Like, Jesus.
Yeah, that was another thing. 8 penalties after halftime. And then there was a stretch there where they just couldn't get out of their own way with penalties. And maybe, Paige, that goes back to, sleepy 11 a.m. kick, an opponent you don't really respect. You kind of mailed it. Some of these kids kind of mailed it. Now, to be fair, by the way, against Nebraska, we didn't mention this. Garrett Wilson didn't play, and he was my first half MVP. I still think he's their best offensive player. And they had a couple guys along the offensive line that were nicked up. Nicholas Petit-Ferrer missed a couple of days of practice last week. DeJuan Jones was sick and wasn't supposed to play, but both guys played, but maybe they were not quite 100%. So I guess that's something to factor in too. If everyone's healthy, they're at full strength, they're in the shoe. All right, well let's move over to score predictions then. Paige, I want to start with you. Give me your score prediction for this game.
I'm going 46-26.
46-26. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're the better team. We all know they're the better team. Yeah, they got some players. We've got 5 times as many players as they do. And I think the Nebraska and Penn State games were good games, right? Like sort of reset expectations for us. I think they're reset expectations for that team as well.
Yeah.
And so, if it were on the road, I might be a little bit more worried, obviously. But I like the 3:30 start. It's going to be kind of chilly, it seems like, but I don't think Purdue's sneaking up on us. We're not having a letdown game. Like you can take all those, gambling, 101 things to look for. That's not going to be the case. And I think they're going to handle their business.
All right, Chad, how about you? Give me your score prediction.
47, Purdue 17.
47-17. You like the Buckeyes by 30.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We definitely covered the spread here. So anybody out there in the little South stands listening, if your car's worth $2,500, I would bet it on this game.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm looking at the all-time series results between Ohio State and
here's where the
Purdue.
7 comes in.
Ohio State is 3-3 against Purdue in their last 6 games, and one of those games they should have lost. right? So they could have easily been 2-4. Just as a point of reference, Purdue is a bugaboo for Ohio State. For some reason, we just, no matter where we play them, they seem to play us really tough. They are undaunted by a matchup with us. But at the same time, I do wonder now that Purdue doesn't have their cloak of deception, which is being unranked, if that will have any impact. And you have to wonder their offensive strategy, which is going to be to just, throw it 50 plus times, just try and kill Ohio State throwing the ball, against a pretty good Ohio State pass rush and a pretty opportunistic defense that's been really good at forcing turnovers. You have to think the Buckeyes are going to make some plays on that side of the ball. But I don't know what the hell's going on with the offense, and I don't totally trust the back end of the defense against a good Purdue passing game. So I'm calling this one a little tighter than you guys. I got Ohio State 36, Purdue 28. I don't think Ohio State has to worry about style points. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to win convincingly and dominate our opponents, but I think if they get through these next 4 games, and I'm including the Big Ten title game, they're in. But I think Purdue's the best team left on their regular season schedule. I think they're better than Michigan State. Well, we clearly know that because they kicked Michigan State's ass last week. I think they're better than Michigan. I think they're more dangerous than Michigan. So close one, Ohio State 36, Purdue 28. Then we get ready for Sparty.
More dangerous than, did I just hear that right?
Yeah.
More dangerous than Michigan in Ann Arbor?
I do.
Wow. Did you hear that, Paige? Did you? Wow.
I mean, my jaw up from the ground here.
I feel like there's there's lava coming up from somewhere.
Well, I mean, you guys know how I feel about Michigan. I won't go through that diatribe. I got to see something from them. And by the way, I want to have a look at their matchup with Penn State. But before we do that, guys, any other thoughts on this game before we have a look at Michigan and Penn State? Paige, how about you?
No, just to say, hey, we got 3 fun games left to go.
Yeah.
Right. The season's flying by, and I think we get caught up in the minutia and just freaking out about it. And I'm excited to watch the game. Right. These are going to be amazingly fun games. A little bit of drama. It's awesome. I'm totally fired up for it. I can't wait.
Yeah. These are going to be great tests for Ohio State. We're going to learn a lot about this team. It's going to test their depth. It's going to test their toughness. And they will have earned it. You get through this stretch. I mean, that's the reward. If they can make it through this stretch.
It's a gauntlet, man.
They would they make it through this gauntlet. They will have earned their ticket to the college football playoff. How about you, Chad? Any final thoughts on this game before we have a look at Penn State, Michigan?
My final thoughts is I'm probably going to rely on you guys for texts, this and that. I actually am going to be at the Hawaii UNLV game in the new Raiders Stadium. It's a noon kickoff, which is 3:00, obviously.
Why the hell are you going to that game?
Yeah,
well,
what? You might need to
hey, I'm flying out to Vegas in about 2 hours for the weekend.
Yeah,
but here's the deal.
You know what? I don't need an explanation. That's a
CP, I don't know, man. We may have to revoke your South Stands license here for a week, buddy.
Listen, hey. I'm looking forward to being in that new Raiders Stadium, and I'm sure for practice I can watch that game probably and play slots at the same time.
Well, I was going to say you'll probably have the stadium to yourself, my friend. UNLV Hawaii, I'm probably not going to draw a huge crowd.
Can you just
listen? I just want to go into that new the Raiders Stadium. It's it's $1 billion stadium. Jerry Jones.
Go do the tour Sunday night. You don't. I mean, why would you have to be there on Saturday?
I'm not going on a goddamn tour at the fucking stadium.
All right, well, enjoy that.
Vegas, aren't you, Paige? So I don't need to do a tour.
I might be there. I won't be at the UNLV game, but
dude, I'm going in for a half, so I'm out. So it's all good, dude.
All right,
see the stadium.
Awesome. Well, enjoy that, CP.
No concerns.
Okay, so no concerns, no final thoughts on that. All right, let's turn our attention to one other Big Ten game of interest, I think, for all of us, especially Michigan visits Penn State. Now, that's the early game. That's a noon Eastern kick. So I'm going to be tuning in for that one before Ohio State squares off with Purdue. Michigan, the line is Michigan -1.5. The line I saw previous to that was Penn State -1, but now it's moved Michigan -1.5. The over-under is 48.5. Again, this is in Happy Valley. It's not a whiteout. CP, who do you like?
You guys know how I feel about Michigan, and when we play them, I want them to be undefeated. I'm going with Michigan.
You're going with Michigan just because you want them to win and only have one loss, but when we play them,
I want them. Yes, I want them to have one loss and like everybody hyped up. Now, if you were to ask me about what I really truly feel about the game,
Yeah, we're more interested in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Franklin's getting like, I mean, Penn State's been getting bitch slapped. I mean, really, out of the top 25, I would say they would beat like from 11 down, they'd beat every one of those teams. At least like
you're talking about in the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why are they not in the top?
I agree.
25?
Why they should be ranked.
That's insane.
Yeah. Especially if Wisconsin's ranked. Wisconsin's in there with 3 losses and Penn State beat them. I don't understand.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's like this committee, I think, is like they have like Van Gummy has maybe shipped them a couple of things, like, because they're out there, man. That's all I gotta say. Penn State could beat like the top.
They're getting Van Gummy packages from the CO.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like Penn State could beat like the bottom half of that top 25 that they are getting punked not being in.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I have a lot of respect for Penn State. How about you, PBH? Who do you like in this game?
I'm actually completely in agreement with Chad. Like, I do think we really want Michigan to win it because we've already taken care of business versus Penn State. Mm-hmm. I thought I saw something that Franklin, though, is like 2-10 against AP or whatever top 10 teams. That's pretty pathetic record. As much as Harbaugh gets raked over the coals.
Yeah,
right.
Franklin doesn't, but I don't see any way on God's green earth how Michigan wins this game. I think Penn State's good. I don't think Michigan's that great. Yeah. So, I'm with Mr. Plummer on this. I'm gonna be rooting for Michigan, but I think Penn State wins it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think Penn State wins it. I think that defense is real. I think that defense is going to give Michigan all kinds of problems. All the consternation from the college football rankings this week.
Consternation. What with 50 center words?
Well, over the fact that Michigan was ranked ahead of Michigan State, though Michigan State had the head-to-head win, and I tweeted about this from the South Stands Twitter page, and I said, relax, everyone. I mean, the outrage will be short-lived when Michigan loses at Penn State, and the Michigan State.
I love all your tweets of the South Stands, Zach. I wish I could actually respond, and it could be.
That's right. You got a Twitter ban.
Yeah, Twitter ban since February.
Hey, one more game I want to ask you guys about, and then I'm going to let you go. Oklahoma at Baylor, number 8 Oklahoma at number 13 Baylor. Oklahoma is a 5.5 point favorite in this game. Over under 62. Who do you like in this game? PBH?
Is Baylor ranked 13th?
13th. Yeah.
Oh, who knew? Yeah. I think I don't really candidly have an opinion. I think it'll be a fun game. I mean, do we care? Because I think if Oklahoma loses, that opens up the door.
We do care.
I think we do care.
Because we want Oklahoma, because they're fake. They're fake. They have no defense. You might as well just put a bunch of Helen Kellers out there.
Yeah, but does Baylor play defense? I mean, nobody.
Baylor is my pick. Z. They beat this. They beat the Sooners this week.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Paige. I didn't mean to overstep.
No, it's all good. I mean, I saw it on the schedule. I think it's probably the only other compelling game. Oklahoma's got 3 tough games to go, or
they do. Baylor, at home against Iowa State, who's no longer ranked, but still kind of an opponent you have to respect. And then they're on the road at number 10 Oklahoma State. Look, we don't want Oklahoma running that gauntlet because they could very well they're undefeated. So I mean, I think we definitely are Baylor fans and Cyclone fans and Cowboy fans.
Nobody up to this point has given any respect.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Right. But they could get that respect with a win against the committee's number 13. Yeah. I mean, they could get that respect on the road against the committee's number 13 and on the road against the committee's number 10, right? They play Oklahoma State and Bedlam at the end of the season. So look, I mean, Ohio State fans need to be rooting for Oklahoma to lose. I don't think you do not want a 12-0 Oklahoma team with, finishing the season, running that gauntlet undefeated, because that could create complications for Ohio State for sure.
It could, only in the sense that Alabama, if everything else went to script, plays Georgia very tight in the SEC championship game. And so then does if a Big Ten championship, Ohio State get put in at number 4 versus Alabama. I would actually like to see that happen and see what they would do, but I get your point. Like,
yeah.
We don't want that stress.
No. Well, I mean, watch, I know you guys, we text a little bit about that, but man, Bama looked, oh boy, they looked really shaky last week.
Beat.
Yeah. I mean, we're complaining about Ohio State's inability to run the football. Bama had 6 yards rushing last week against LSU. I think only just over 300 yards of total offense in that game. And they should have lost. I mean, LSU had the ball 1st and 10 at the Alabama 42, down 6 with like 3 or 4 minutes to play. They had a chance to win it. And, as things look now, I think Georgia's going to kill Alabama. And maybe then we don't have to worry, right? It doesn't matter what happens with Oklahoma if Alabama's out of the mix. All right, fellas. Hey, thanks a lot for making the time. Let's reconvene next week after Ohio State hopefully beats Purdue.
Go Bucks, Zach.
All right.
Thanks for always hosting, brother.
Your ass.
Keep the cream alive.
All right, boys. Have a good night. See ya.
Peace out.
You've been listening to the South Stands, a Buckeye football podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit our website at southstandsosu.com.